Welcome back to another episode of Revealing Biblical Truths. There are still plenty of archaeological sites that I want to uncover, and I will be doing more videos on those sites in the future. However, today I am starting a new video series called Back to the Basics of Scripture. In this series, I will be discussing the basics of the faith of Mashiach. This includes how we got the Bible we have today, how the Old and New Testament are laid out, the patterns we see in Scripture, some of the translation errors that cause confusion, and many more things. But in today's episode, I'll be going over the basics of how we got a Bible we have today, and why it's critical to study that history. Let's start with the Tanakh. The Tanakh, or what most refer to as the Old Testament, is a mnemonic device that stands for the Torah, the Nevi'im, and the Ketuvim. The Torah, or the first 5 books of the Bible written by Moshe, contain the law or the instructions. These books are Genesis, also called Bereshit, meaning in the beginnings; Exodus, also called Shemot, meaning the names; Leviticus, also called Vayikra, meaning and he called; Numbers, also called Bemidbar, meaning in the wilderness; and finally Deuteronomy, which is also called Devarim, or the words. In addition to the Torah, the Tanakh includes the Nevi'im. The word Nevi'im is the plural of Navi, which means the prophet. So the Nevi'im are the writings of the prophets. These books include Joshua, Judges, Samuel, Kings, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, as well as the 12 minor prophets, Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi. The Ketuvim is the last section of the Tanakh. The word means the writings and includes 3 sections. The first is the 3 poetic books of the Psalms, also called Tehillim, the Proverbs, called Mishli, and Job, or Eob. The second section is the 5 scrolls, or Megillot, which contain the Song of Songs, Ruth, Lamentations, Ecclesiastes, and Esther. The last section contains Daniel, Ezra, Nehemiah, and Chronicles. It is generally accepted that the Torah was declared canon around 500 BC, while the rest of the Tanakh was likely canonized by the Hasmonean dynasty between 140 and 40 BC. Most of what is found in the Tanakh was written either in Hebrew or Aramaic, the ones in Aramaic being the later dates, or when the Israelites were in exile, where Aramaic was the predominant language. Somewhere around 250 to 200 BC, Ptolemy II, a Greek king of Egypt, assembled Jewish scholars to translate the Hebrew Bible into Koine Greek to have as part of the Library of Alexandria. According to Philo, he assembled 6 scholars, one from each of the 12 tribes, to accomplish this, a total of 72. This translation is called the Septuagint. Later copies of the Septuagint, up to 400 AD, includes books that were not in the original Septuagint, and included 1st and 2nd Maccabees, Tobit, Judith, the Wisdom of Solomon, Sirach, Baruch, and additions to Esther and Daniel. As these books were translated then into Latin and English, they were included in the Catholic and Orthodox canons, but dropped in most Protestant canons. These books became known as the Deuterocanonical or Apocryphal books. This is not to say that these books were not scripture, however. Copies of the Septuagint were found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Irenaeus and later Jerome did not hold the Septuagint to the same level of scripture, as there were many issues found with the text. For one, there were translation errors. Also, there were Hebrew idioms and cultural ideas that were not present in Greek, so they had no idea how to translate those words. In addition, there were some words in Hebrew that do not have a proper word that encompasses the meaning in Greek. Jerome used these and others to translate the text himself into Latin, which he became the Latin Vulgate the Catholic Church used. Shifting gears to the Brit Hadashah, or the New Covenant, New Testament, we see the early church fathers having a variety of books they considered scripture. However, it wasn't until the councils of the 4th century AD that the current canon started to take shape. At the Council of Laodicea in 363, a canon was decided upon which contained 22 Old Testament and 26 New Testament books. This canon excluded Revelation. Pope Damascus and Jerome in 383 proclaimed 27 books of the NT, including Revelation, as well as the books of the Old Testament, but also included the Apocrypha and other books too. Later, Martin Luther published his version of the New Testament in 1522. He did not believe the books of Jude, James, Hebrews, and Revelation were scripture and wanted to remove them, but ultimately he kept them and put them at the end of the book. At the Council of Trent, the final canon of the Catholic Bible was agreed upon and contained all the Old Testament books, the Apocrypha, and the 27 books we have in New Testament today. For the Protestants, there were 3 confessions over a period of 100 years, culminating in the Westminster Confession of 1647, which affirmed the current NT canon. The Geneva Bible of 1557 was the first English translation authorized by Queen Mary of England, and the Old Testament was translated directly from the Hebrew text, not the Septuagint. The King James Bible of 1611 contained all the books in today's King James, but also included 1st and 2nd Esdras, Tobit, Judith, the Wisdom of Solomon, Ecclesiasticus, Baruch, the Epistle of Jeremiah, the Song of the Three Children, Susanna, Bel and the Dragon, the Prayer of Manasseh, and 1st and 2nd Maccabees. Now, the apocryphal books of the KJV were removed in 1885. Nobody knows the exact reason, though at the time they claim it was to cut costs of printing. Many other Bibles and canons to this day still contain those books. They do not contradict the other books of canon and were thought to be inspired for nearly 1900 years or more. Also, some of these books were found in the Dead Sea Scrolls, such as Tobit and Sirach. I believe these books should be included as scripture. In addition to these, books such as 1st Enoch and Jubilees should be included as well. These books were found in the Dead Sea Scrolls and were quoted verbatim by Yahusha and the apostles, and they give prophecies only alluded to in the current canon. In addition, they provide much-needed context to stories in the Bible, such as the Genesis 6 and Jude, where it talks about the Watchers and the Nephilim. Now that we have a basis for the canon of Scripture, in the next video I'll be discussing the key to unlocking the deeper meanings of the Bible. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching. Till next time, Shalom.